So what is microwork? How do you define that?
Microwork consists of small tasks that can be done online using a basic computing device. It includes things like business listings verification, so that involves workers looking at the name of a company and its location and trying to verify the rest of the address or the missing pieces of information like a phone number. It involves content moderation, looking at images and text that people upload to websites and making sure that that's not objectionable content. And it involves a wide range of things that are commonly outsourced. And increasingly we're seeing that these big outsourcing projects can be broken down into small tasks.
So the companies that are involved in that, how can they make sure that the workers are being treated fairly?
That's a great question, and unfortunately not enough companies ask themselves that.
Sure.
I think the first thing is to look at the structure of the business that's doing the outsourcing. In Samasource's case, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, which means that we can be profitable, but any revenue that we make has to be reinvested in the business instead of being paid out to investors or shareholders as dividends. And I think what that means is that we inherently have a focus on the worker.
Right.
So roughly 70% of the money that comes into Samasource goes out to our partners and workers, and that's a very big difference from the traditional model in the outsourcing world, which has created 7 billionaires, and where rarely do you get more than 10% of the money going to your frontline workers.
Right, so structurally you've set it up that it's sort of equitable from the beginning, right?
Right, so companies could look at the structure of the outsourcing company they're working with. They could go and investigate what the workers say directly by asking them. So one of the benefits of our industry is that all of the workers are on the internet, which means they have email addresses, and most of them have cell phones. And so we've developed ways of soliciting feedback from workers, kind of circumventing the companies that they work for to find out what conditions are like. And lastly, there's no substitute for going into the field and seeing it for yourself. So I spend, as do many members of my team, a lot of time in the field with workers looking at their working conditions. We do spot checks, and we have people based in Nairobi and India and Haiti to make sure that workers are being treated fairly.
Now you mentioned Haiti, and I know in the aftermath of the Haiti earthquake that you teamed up with a number of other companies and organizations. Can you talk about how that relationship formed and what came of it?
Sure, it was formed in 2 weeks. We were sort of thrown together right after the earthquake because we heard from our friends at Frontline SMS that there was this immediate need to translate a huge number of text messages that were coming into to their servers in the wake of the earthquake. So they'd worked with the Haitian government to set up a system, a 911 system that operated entirely via SMS. So Haitians in any part of Port-au-Prince could send in a message to a short code, and then there would be an emergency responder on the other end who'd receive the message and respond in real time. The problem was that all of the emergency responders spoke English. They were from the American Red Cross and from a number of other relief organizations. And so Haitian Creole messages weren't really helpful for them. And we needed a quick way to translate tens of thousands of messages. So Crowdflower, a for-profit venture-backed startup based in the Mission District in San Francisco, and who we used to share office space with, came to us and said, "We need translators immediately. What can you do?" So we flew down to Haiti and trained 50 people to do really basic SMS translation using Crowdflower's interface. And within 3 weeks, we had a functional translation center for less than $20,000.
Wow. So is there a model there? I mean, for emergency and crisis response now?
I would love for there to be a model. I think what we showed with the Haiti example is that it's often beneficial to look at the country's own resources as a labor base when you're thinking about outsourcing. So the initial hope had been that the disaster relief organizations would find an outsourcing partner outside of Haiti to do the translation. And we thought, well, that's silly. If there's one thing that Haitians can do, it's speak Creole. So why not locate that within the country? So I think the part of the model that's most replicable is this idea that local labor can be really valuable in the aftermath of a crisis, and it's often local people that need jobs the most in that time. However, there were some difficulties that we had there that I think we wouldn't want to export. So one of the difficult things has been the continuity of that work for the workers we trained. So those 50 people, we're now struggling to find them contracts, and there aren't a lot of contracts in Haitian Creole in the outsourcing world. And so I think in terms of exporting the model, that's one of the considerations that I'd urge people to look at. And I also think that in other countries that have a more common national language, and in a lot of African and Asian countries, English is widely spoken, you might be able to receive text in English to begin with and therefore not need translators.
Right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.